So I'm back. I'm so happy to be back. I'm happy to be back on here. I'm very sorry for the crow that's kind of just outside my window, so you might hear it, crowing. What do crows do? Do they crow? Do crows crow? Whatever they do, I apologize in advance. While I was in Indonesia, um, I kind of stumbled upon some photos of me from when I was probably around, I reckon about 13, 14 years of age. And I was looking at these photos and I remember being 13, 14 years old. And I remember being told that I was fat. And I remember feeling fat, and I remember knowing that being fat was unacceptable. I remember all the diets that I went on, mainly that were forced upon me by my mother. Things like Slim Fast Diet, Jenny Craig. I remember going to a dietitian at the age of 12. So many different diets. And I just remember that feeling of being so unacceptable. Like, I just felt like my whole entire being, that it wasn't just my body that was unacceptable. It just felt like me as a person, as a being, I was unacceptable. But this feeling stemmed from my body weight. Anyway, like I said, I found these photos of myself playing hockey. So I was being active, playing hockey, and I looked at my body, and I just went, I'm not even that big. You know what I mean? I looked at these photos and went, my mother, my family, everyone else was telling me that I was fat when I wasn't. I really, really wasn't. Sure, I was bigger than the other kids, I was, but I was no way near fat. And I think that a lot of people go through this. I think a lot of people remember being fat, but when they look at themselves in these photos of themselves when they were younger, when they were in their teens, they realize that it was nothing, that you looked like a regular, healthy, active kid. You were bigger than the other kids, sure, you were a little bit more chubby, but you remember everyone making you out to be this absolute fucking fat monster. You know what I mean? But you weren't. You weren't. I wasn't. I read this article about 6 months ago. I really need to start writing articles down so I can, when I talk about them, apologies. But it was about a study that was done that basically said that yo-yo dieting in your preteens through to your teens actually causes long-term obesity in adults. So basically, the more you yo-yo diet as a teenager, the higher the chance of you staying fat for the rest of your life. And when I read that, I was just livid at everyone. Every friend of my mother's who told me I was pretty but should lose some weight because then I could get a boyfriend. Every, school kid who laughed at me behind my back. My mother for putting me on these diets and making me feel like my whole self-worth, my worth as a human being was wrapped up in how the outside looked. For putting me on all these diets that made me so confused about what was right, what was good to eat, and what was bad to eat. I ended up having such a hateful relationship with food and my body that I am now this, I'm considered this unacceptable person, this unacceptable size today. Every person who has ever said to me, like Sophie said, every person who has ever said, you have such a pretty face, if you just lost a few more kilos. Every person who has given me a backwards compliment, every person who's ever made some, horrible comment about my weight and the way I look, take responsibility. You are in part responsible for my relationship, my disgustingly complicated relationship with my body and how I think about everything that I eat. How I feel guilty when I'm full. Even if I've eaten something really, really healthy for me, I feel guilty when I'm full. Like, how fucked is that? I take responsibility. I take responsibility for talking to my friend's child and telling her that she needs to lose weight. Telling her that she's unacceptable. That's what I say. That's what I mean. And I don't want any child, any preteen to go through what I went through and hate themselves as much as I was programmed to hate myself. I never, ever I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Take responsibility and just let teenagers and kids be teenagers and kids. Tell them to love themselves, tell them to love their bodies, and they'll end up being great kids. Great kids turn into great adults. I could go on and on about this, but it's already 7 minutes long. Take responsibility for the things that you tell people. And I hope that if you have kids, if you're going to have kids, that you teach them that they are beautiful and they are acceptable no matter what size they are.